If you're an artist and you have a portfolio here, if you want to swing by the Comics Experience table later, I'm happy to do portfolio reviews. So just so you know, you're welcome to do that later on. I'd actually like to open this up to your questions, because you're going to have more specific questions about what you really want to know, either about writing or about art or about the comic book business. Feel free to ask the panelists. Do I have anybody, any takers? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, sir.
This is a question for John. I've been hitting the convention circuit, and I'm finding, when I talk to the editors, Barber, saying, great, we love your stuff, we're going to get your stuff to the talent coordinator. Like for 3 conventions in a row, I hear that, never gets called back. I get emails from them. How do you finally break that whole barrier?
Well, I mean, even somebody like Brian Bendis was doing stuff at Caliber for 9 years before he got called from Marvel. I mean, that's your baseline level. Do it for 9 more years, I mean, that sucks, but the reality, to me, the best advice I ever heard about breaking into comics was from Scott McCloud. And somebody asked Scott McCloud, Scott, how do you break into comics? He said, okay, well, you take a piece of paper, Xerox it, take another one, Xerox that, staple them together. There, you broke into comics. And that's important, I think, at a certain level. You have to find a decent place where comics are in your life, a place where you're happy with it. It might not be it might not be the job that makes the money for you, even if it is the main job for you, the thing that's important to you. If you keep at that and you can demonstrate that you can create these comics, that you have something to say, that there's something worth it in you, a drive to get these things out there. Again, like Peter says, eventually, if you don't suck, and if you're lucky, somebody's going to find that, and there is getting lucky. You do have to be there in just the right place. Maybe sometime you're going to send that.
You can make your own one.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to capitalize on that moment when that email. You happen to send that email at just the right time, where it's like, you know what, I do need somebody to write this right now, and you have to be ready to jump on it at that moment, because there aren't going to be a lot of opportunities where something like that happens. You have to make you have to set yourself up so that when that lucky moment happens, you're ready to work. You're ready to move on it.
Yeah, a good example of that actually is writer Chris Gage, who started his whole career. I mean, he had a career in TV and film, so he had credentials that were pretty well established outside of comics. But his passion is comic books. If you read any of his comics, it's very clear he loves comics. But he was always ready. No matter what time of day, he was ready to say yes and to get that script in to a very professional level whenever you needed it. And that's what he does, and that's how he based his whole career, and now he's practically running Wildstorm, which is what it is. Any other questions? Yeah.
Would you recommend somebody working in, like, say, with web comics before trying to get into Marvel first? That way to hone their skills and their storytelling, maybe like learn from other artists or something like that?
I would, yes.
Yeah, I personally would recommend it. The only couple of things that's a little different about webcomics is just that the formatting is a little bit different. You've got a little more freedom with webcomics, so just as long as you're paying attention and you know the difference and how to just adjust slightly from when you are doing paper comics, then absolutely. And it's a great, very easy way to get your work in front of somebody, because all you're doing is passing a hyperlink off in an email. I can just click on that and boom, I'm at your page. If I like it, then great. Then I call you up and we start talking.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The kind of editors spend time these days trolling the internet, the website, to find your town?
Some do, some don't. It sort of depends. Yeah, we're the guys posting you suck. Yeah, some do. Robert Downey's gonna suck. Signed Andy Schmidt. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some do, some don't. I mean, some guys. I know at Marvel, the editors are completely strapped and they are busy all day long. You don't really have time to surf the internet. So a lot of times somebody just sends in a link, and if I've heard of them, or if I don't know, I just happen to be feeling nice that day, I click on the link, I take a look around, maybe shoot back some feedback. John actually worked in web comics before he came to Marvel, so he's actually probably better qualified to answer that than me.
Or worse. I mean,
that pretty much covers the range.
Yeah, it's one of the two, or somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between.
Hold on a second. There could be somewhere in between.
Yeah, that's true.
You might need to be middle.
Better, worse, equal.
Again, like it comes down to what I was saying, like what Scott said. I mean, obviously Scott was a big webcomics guy is a big webcomics guy, and part of that is that's a factor of making your own luck. Is if you get out there and you become, you know, Scott Kurtz or something like that. Well, Scott Kurtz, who I accidentally referred to in a Newsarama interview when I was trying to talk about the Penny Arcade guys. I accidentally typed PvP guys. I know the difference, but I just typed the wrong thing. Didn't read it. And I'm like, oh, you know, PvP guy, or I'm sorry, I said the PvP guys, I meant the Penny Arcade guys, Gabe and Tycho. They probably wouldn't want to work at Marvel. They've got their own thing going. I almost referenced the Wired article that was just about him. Scott Kurtz emails me. He's like, oh, no, of course I'd like to work at Marvel. I'm like, oh, oops, I didn't mean you, Scott. Sorry about that. So we're talking. Things are good. It worked out good. Happy ending for everybody. But you know, like when you become somebody like that, look, when I get that email from Scott Kurtz, then it's like, it's not just some random guy. It's, oh, I know who this guy is. It's Scott Kurtz, the guy that does PvP. You know, it puts you in a position, if you make a name for yourself in any type of comics, be it web comics, comics outside Marvel, DC, if you create a hit TV show, whatever, you become something that Marvel or DC want. You don't become somebody asking them for a handout. You know what I mean? It shifts the position from, we want you specifically, not, needs, you know, you could use somebody somewhere, I guess, maybe this guy. It's a position of weakness, and if you can get yourself in a position of strength, you're better off. Yeah.
I have a related question. A lot of people who are starting out in comics either team up and make an anthology and they put it out, or there are some independent anthologies that publish new people. And my question is, do people who are working at the larger companies go, ooh, here's something that an independent guy put out, let me take a look at it, it's an anthology, or do you have to actually put it in front of their face and say, here, I wrote this story, page 8, take a look at it?
The latter is probably more likely. I mean, there's a lot of comics out there. I mean, I read a lot of comics. I love reading comics, but there's so many good comics out there right now, just in a way that I don't think there ever have been before, where I can go into a comic book store any day of the week and drop, you know, not that I can, I could drop a couple $100s because I would, there's so much stuff I want to read. There's only so many hours in the day, so much money to spend on comics. You know, and to be honest, even if you send that stuff in, Brian Bendis told a story one time where he, when David Mack was working at Marvel, he was really good friends with David Mack. He comes in there and he goes and he meets Tom Brevoort. Bendis has been sending Brevoort his comics for years at this point. And Bendis sees, unread on Brevoort's desk, one of his comics. He took that as a good sign because at least it didn't get thrown away. At least he was at that point. If you walk into my desk right now, it's a mess. And part of that is just there's a bunch of stuff in there that I haven't read yet. I mean, some stuff literally from people in this room. And you know, I apologize for not getting back to him faster. You know, someday I'll get a chance to look at it. But yeah, it's worth, you know, it's worth looking in the books. You know, see people's names whose sensibilities seem to reflect yours. Because if you find an editor whose sensibilities are completely foreign to you, and vice versa, that's not going to help anybody either. You know, it's going to be so. You know, there's a lot of luck involved in that. A lot of luck involved in that. So you don't really know. But if you know, if there's like a, you know, if you were a big fan of like all the Annihilation books or something like that, you realize, oh, Andy Schmidt's editing those, and maybe Andy Schmidt's the right kind of guy that I should, you know, take a chance to send a submission up to. Unless you've got enough copies, go ahead and blanket everybody.
Good.
What?
So unless you're a Khoi fan,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Peter David's on his panel. Why are people asking me questions?
Any other questions? Yes.
As an artist, as a writer with the artistic talent of maybe drawing giant dice someday after a few hours, I only can write. I have no artistic ability. Am I better off suited to having scripts to submit, or finding an artist and having them put together pencils for my scripts?
To submit to like Marvel and DC, or to submit to smaller publishers?
To get myself rolling, in general, either or both.
I think my recommendation is have your script. If you're writing even fairly quick, write your scripts, your spec scripts, have them ready, send them out, but also find a really great artist, you know, or a very good artist to illustrate one of your scripts. I am definitely more likely to read a printed comic book than I am to just pick up a script and read it.
That might mean having to actually pay somebody to draw it, not just getting your pal who wants to do it for free. Or find somebody who's good, who's also trying to break in. They may do it for free or for very little money.